It's time to break out that little red dress and that tuxedo because it is date night part deuce. Today we are making a delicious roasted red pepper sauce that we're gonna put over some penne pasta with some Italian sausage. It is a great meal for two. The irony, of course, being I am shooting the show by myself today because Louis had to work, but that's fine. Just unfortunately, shots are gonna be stable today. So let's just get started. I have got 2 red peppers here, and these are going to be the main part of our sauce. So all I'm doing is taking some olive oil and I'm just giving it just a little light kiss of olive oil, doesn't need a lot. And what I'm doing right now is I'm just going to coat the outside of this red bell pepper because we're going to put these under the broiler, get them nice and charred, and then that's going to make it easier to take the skin off. We don't want to keep the skin of the red pepper on here because it has a tendency to irritate people's stomachs. All right, so I've got my broiler set to high. I'm using a gas stove, so my broiler flame is actually at the top of the oven. Yours may be underneath in this bottom drawer that you normally store your pots and pans in. Guess what? That's a broiler. So I've just got my bell peppers here on this tin foil, just makes things a little bit easier. And I'm gonna keep them under the broiler. All I'm really looking to just get a light char on all sides, not completely blackened, just good enough so that we can get that skin off. So let's close this up and I'll show you guys what it looks like in a little bit. All right, it's only been a few minutes, but let's just go ahead and take a little look here and see what we're looking like. And this is what I'm looking for. Got a little light charring here on the first side, so all I'm gonna do is just take it, flip it over, let that flame continue to kiss the other side. When you're broiling, you don't wanna walk too far away because this is just an open flame and these things can burn really quickly. So I've been checking on this about every minute or two just to make sure it's not going too far. So push it back in and let it keep doing its thing. All right, so after a couple of minutes, we have got all the char that we need. So for this next part, I recommend using a pretty heavy duty Ziploc type bag. I wouldn't go cheap on this because what we're gonna do is take our roasted red peppers, we're gonna place them in the bags, and then we're gonna seal it up. The purpose of this being that once it's sealed up, they'll begin to steam, and that's gonna help us get that skin off of the peppers a lot easier than any other way. While this is doing its thing, let's get our other elements prepped up. All right, again, not a lot of ingredients that have to go in this recipe, which is why it's perfect for date night. So right now I've just got me a whole yellow onion, and all I'm going to do is get ready to cut it into just some rough, thin slices because this is all gonna end up going in a blender later. I've got me some garlic here, and today I'm gonna use a good amount because I'm a fan of garlic. So in all, I'm using about this much of garlic. I would give you the exact amount of cloves that I'm using, but the thing is you may be having bigger cloves than this, but this is kind of the general amount. Like for the garlic, literally just going to just crush it with my knife like that so we can get it out of its paper. Just a rough chop. So let's get the rest of this garlic chopped up. And one of the most important ingredients of this entire process, do not skip out on this. These are Calabrian peppers. They are absolutely amazing. Not only are they gonna give us the heat that we need for this dish, they're gonna provide some amazing flavor with the oil that they're packed in. So do not skip this. If you wanna know where to get this, I found it at my local Ralph's. You may be able to find it in your local grocery store. It'll be in the section where like the olives and the other roasted red peppers are. And you can absolutely 100% always find this at Whole Foods. It runs for about $10, but they are absolutely worth it when it comes to cooking these type of dishes. So do not skimp out. I've got the whole peppers here. So all I'm really gonna do is take out about 5 of these guys. So I've got my 5 peppers here. What I'm gonna do is cut off this very end stem part here. And then I do want to control the heat in this. Granted, I like my stuff on the spicy side, so what I'm gonna do is take my knife and just gently kind of press these seeds out. I'm not gonna try to get rid of all of them, just the ones that I can kind of squeeze out here. You are more than welcome to cut this open, take all the seeds out. It's up to you. I've just found that, you know, this leaves the right amount of heat inside for me. And then once I've got a good amount of seeds out, just take my knife, cut them up. Now that we've got all these chopped up, it's time to check on our bell peppers because I believe they are good to go. So to get the skin off the bell pepper, I found it pretty easy just to grab it by the stem. And again, I let this steam for about 10 minutes in a Ziploc bag. Kind of grab it by the stem, just take my knife at an angle and just kind of give it a good old shave. And at some point, should be able just to pull that skin right off like that. And you don't have to obsess over this. I know I said take the skin off in order to kind of avoid sometimes some stomach irritation, but it doesn't absolutely have to be perfect. So Just coming down. I'm pretty content with that. And then all I want to do is just take my knife, kind of go gently through the skin, not all the way, because all I'm doing is just making it easier to remove the stem and the seeds inside. Pop that off, open her up, get rid of any more seeds. And then what I want to do is just cut these into thin strips. All right, now that we've got everything sliced up, it is time to get our pan heated up. So just over a medium heat is what I'm going to have this going. And then we're going to start slowly adding our ingredients, starting with a good glug of some olive oil. This is not a diet-friendly recipe. Let me just go ahead and tell you that. Add in our onions. We want to get these nice and softened up. And while they're softening, we would definitely want to add a little bit of salt to them. Now that our onions are starting to kind of brown and they're definitely softened and translucent, we're going to add in our peppers because we really just want to give our onions a head start. And these are just the red peppers. I'm saving the Calabrian peppers for a little bit later. Now that we've let this go for a few more minutes, my favorite part, which is just adding in our other ingredients. So I'm gonna start with our garlic, our Calabrian peppers that we diced up, and a little bit of that oil, because there is some great flavor in that. I'm gonna go about tablespoons worth. And then we're just gonna stir this up until the garlic begins to kind of brown around the edges. It'll definitely become fragrant. And right away, you'll start smelling those peppers, that oil, that garlic, mixed with the onions and the bell peppers. Now that I've given this about 2 minutes to kind of do its thing, I'm gonna take 2 big heaping tablespoons of some tomato paste. I'm talking about heaping. We'll stir this in and let's give this about, let's say 2 minutes over this medium heat, just to kind of get mixed and incorporated in with all the other ingredients that we have in here so far. Next, we're adding in all the calories, which is going to come in the shape of this heavy whipping cream. I've got an entire pint here that I'm going to pour in. And now what I'm going to do is reduce this heat to about medium low. I'd say there's pretty good. Now we're just going to work this cream, this tomato paste, all of these vegetables together. And what I want to do right now is I just want to cook this over this medium low heat until this sauce begins to thicken. Heavy whipping cream. I'd say it's probably gonna take about 5 or so minutes, but I'll show you. You see how liquidy it is and how free it's just moving right now? It'll be a completely different state once we're done with this. As you can see now, this has gotten a lot thicker. I'm gonna still let it go for maybe about 2 or 3 more minutes over this same temperature, but this is exactly what we're looking for. This is that creaminess that we're going for. All right, we have got our sauce here. It is thickened up the way I want it to. And I gave it about 5 minutes to kind of cool down. The reason is because we're going to put this in the food processor. Now, my food processor has a way of letting some of the steam escape, but if you were to put this in like a blender, definitely helpful to let it cool down. Otherwise, you're going to have a big mess on your hands. So what I want to do is take everything out of this and I want to transport it to a food processor because we want to blend this up to an even saucier sauce. Our sauce is in the food processor. Let's get the lid on and let's pulse it until it is nice and even smoother. We're just gonna stop it for a second. We're gonna kind of scrape down the sides because sometimes an onion or a pepper can escape from the jaws of the blade. All right, let's let it go for like 1 more minute and then our sauce is officially done. All right, so our sauce is technically done, but we still have a few other things to it. One, it needs more salt. Also, we still have to add our cheeses and our other ingredients to this. So this sauce as is will still need work, but it is usable in so many applications, not just this one. So just an FYI, if you're gonna use this for some other things, remember cheese and salt are gonna take this to a whole nother level. So right now, what I'm gonna do is get this off to the side. We'll get our induction top back on and then we're gonna brown our meat because now it's time to start putting everything together, including our pork choice. All right, I've got my pan here over just some medium heat again. I've got some red chili pepper flakes and I just wanna put a little bit in some olive oil that I've placed in this pan just because I kinda want this olive oil to get infused with this chili flake flavor. So not a huge amount that I'm using, just a little bit. I've got some mild Italian sausage that I'm gonna put in here, but feel free to put any type of meat in here. You could use chicken, you could use shrimp, I just think Italian sausage goes a really long way in this recipe. And this part is simple. You're used to this. We're just gonna brown it. And I would suggest a mild sausage only because there's heat coming from those Calabrian peppers and that sauce, so you don't wanna get too crazy with the heat. I don't want this minced. I actually wanna leave it on the chunkier side. So I'm just gonna give this a minute on that side to kind of do its thing. While it is, I have some fennel seed here, and I'm just gonna add just a little bit. Fennel seed just adds a little bit something extra. So now I wanna finally break it up. And again, I just want this to be a little bit on the chunkier side. But hey, if you want a little bit more mince, go for it. All right, our sausage is done, and I just put it in some Tupperware real quick with some paper towels, let that grease drain because there's a lot of grease. And now we're gonna do a fun part, which is using today's poor choice, which is just some canned wine, because listen, I know we all look down on canned wine. If you and your date can't enjoy a can of wine, then what is even the point? You're taking yourself way too seriously. This is just some Underwood Pinot Grigio. You can use a Blanc. I definitely suggest some type of dry wine, but I've got this, and I'm just going to use, I hear all that classiness. Listen, I also love this because I can do like a lot of things and not really worry about spilling it. So canned wine has its uses. So we've still got our pan over some medium heat. I dropped my noodles into some water with some salt and some chicken broth for flavor. We're gonna let that get to almost al dente, so about maybe 10 minutes from now. And then we're gonna finish that pasta here in this pan, which we're gonna put some of that sauce in. So first, we gotta deglaze this. All I'm doing is pouring just a little bit. I'd say that's about a 1/4 cup. I'm gonna take my spatula, and the purpose of this is getting all those bits of brown off the bottom, because I want that to go into our sauce. Just let that wine kind of cook off, and you'll know, because right now it's very, very fragrant. You can smell the wine, but after like a minute or so, it'll start to kind of fade away, and then you know you're good to go. So that is the glazing a pan with today's poor choice, just some canned wine. After all, you've made the date too, so you don't need to impress them anymore. Let it all hang out. All right, our pan has deglazed good enough, and so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a spoon, and I'm gonna take some of our sauce here. And I'm kind of eyeballing this because I'm actually making this to order. I'm not just going to dump the entire thing. Put a good amount of sauce in here. And this is a medium heat as of right now, but I'm going to change it a little bit later to a lower one. What we really want to do is just warm this sauce back up. Granted, I didn't put this back in the fridge yet, so it's still pretty much on the warm side. But had you been taking this out of the fridge, you definitely want to warm it up. So we're doing that. To this, I'm going to add about a tablespoon of butter. And the idea is to have this sauce ready to go by the time our noodles are done. So I just want to get this butter melted in here. And we may have to add a little bit more sauce, that's fine. I'm going to add just a little bit sea salt. And then I've got 2 cheeses here. I have got some Pecorino Romano, and I have got some Parmesan. When I first was making this recipe, I used to just do only Parmesan, and it took a lot of Parmesan in order for it to really kind of stand out, until I saw someone do this recipe with Parmesan and some Pecorino Romano, which I'm actually not a fan of Pecorino Romano. It's a little bit too strong of a flavor for me, but this combined with the Parmesan cheese actually really balances out to be really, really good. So I would just warn you guys, just be careful with the Pecorino if you're like me, because it could be a little bit too much. Nothing wrong with just sampling it and seeing how it tastes from there, but that's just my kind of take on it. So once this butter is melted, we're gonna start adding these cheeses in because we wanna get the sauce nice and a little bit thicker, but also cheesy. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add in a giant pinch of the Pecorino because I know we need it. Parmesan tends to get lost in the flavors of this sauce, so that Pecorino kind of just helps it shine through. And then I really want a lot of Parmesan. And again, I may be adding more sauce to this. We're gonna try to get to the right consistency. There's no exact measurement for this. Now what I wanna do is take some of this Italian sausage. I'm just gonna have just a good handful of it, so they can get coated in the sauce, and also it can warm up if we need it to. And then from there, we can kind of get an idea, okay, will we need more sauce? Will we not need more sauce? I'm starting to think we're gonna need some more sauce, so let's just go ahead and just dump a little bit more in here. So we dropped the heat of our sauce to low once I added in the meat and cheese because we just don't want that to cook. I've taken our penne pasta and I've drained it off, except for a little bit of the pasta water because I do want that in the sauce. And now I'm about to pour the pasta, and I'd say it's about maybe a 1/4 cup of pasta water. I'm gonna pour all that into there, and I'm just gonna stir it up. And the sauce is starting to thicken up as I add more cheese to it, which is perfect. I pretty much used all the Parmesan that I had. I'm gonna add a little bit more Pecorino. Then I'm just let this heat through just about for about another minute, and then it'll be time to plate. The moment we've all been waiting for. We've made a mess, but what is a date night without a mess? All I did was I put a little bit more Parmesan cheese on top of it once I got it plated. Added some parsley for color. And now it's time to dive in. Oh, yes. This is absolutely a must try on your next date night, anniversary night, Valentine's Day, whatever you want to do. This is perfect for it if you just want to stay in. I think I got everything for under 30 bucks, including the canned wine. I mean, honestly, the sauce is so good. And again, that sauce keeps for about a week. So feel free to use it on anything. Some ravioli would be really delicious, and a couple other things. But that's Poor Choices Kitchen. Hope you guys enjoy this. I know I am. Oh, and because Lewis is not here, I guess I gotta make it feel some type of way that Lewis is here. So here's Lewis' camera shaking. Oh, we're drunk, we're drunk, we're drunk. All right, we'll see you next week.